Good morning.
Good morning. Matt, I'm gonna share my screen. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Can everyone see my screen and hear me?
Yep, we can.
Okay. Great, thank you. I think we can get started. I think it's 11 o'clock. So we'll start by just introducing who's with us today on Zoom to talk about our community question and answer for our upcoming levy on November 3rd. It's a bond issue and an operating levy. And today we have several people who are part of our Master Facilities Committee and our district. We'll start with Catherine Hope Cunningham. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm Catherine Hope Cunningham. I have lived in Gahanna for 18 years. I am the secretary of the Gahanna Middle School West PTO. Have a 7th grader there. Have been on this Master Facilities Planning Committee for about 5 years.
Thank you, Catherine. We also have our treasurer, Mike Verlingo. You want to say hello?
Yes, good morning. Mike Verlingo, been with the district since January of this year.
Okay, thank you. Scott Lofton.
Good morning. I've lived in the district for 15 years and have worked for the school system for the last 4.
And Scott's our business director. Jessica Williams is with us today. Hi, Jessica.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. I am Jessica Williams, the proud principal of Lincoln High School. Super glad to be here this morning. This is my 4th year in the district, 3rd year in the role serving as principal of Lincoln High School.
And also, thank you, Jessica. We have also Jill Elliott, our assistant superintendent. She'll moderate the question and answer period of our day today. Jill's our assistant superintendent. Do you want to say hello?
Yep, good morning. I am proud to serve as the assistant superintendent. I grew up in the district, have served many roles here, and I'm excited to be a part of this committee.
Thank you. Okay, we'll get started. So we've been on this journey. Today, we're going to talk about phase 2 of our master facilities plan. We'll go through a brief presentation, and at the end of the presentation, you can, or even during, you can enter questions, and we'll try to get to all of your questions this morning. So we'll start by just reviewing what phase 1 of our master facilities plan was and is, because we're still working through it. So we're still building a new Lincoln Elementary on Helmbright Road. On Monday, we have a Board of Education meeting where we'll be going through and looking at the progress of the building. That building will be done in the fall of 21, and that's when we will begin school there. The other part of phase 1 was to renovate K-8 classrooms with new flooring, furniture, lighting, and paint, and we're still in the middle of that process. And we were also in the midst of, and we just completed middle school and most of our elementary renovations for media centers. We're also doing many restroom renovations throughout the district in the K-8 buildings. Also in phase 1, we've done a lot of community engagement around a workable solution for our high school. We have the ninth biggest high school in the state, and we're currently housed in a very old, inefficient building. And so we've had a lot of discussions about that, and we'll talk quite a bit about that this morning. And one of the most important things we've done is an enrollment study to see where our enrollment growth will take us over the next several decades. And I think you'll find this interesting. We frame the presentation today around 4 questions. And so the first is, what are our facility needs across the district? So one of the things that's driving our facility needs is our enrollment growth. Our enrollment study shows us that we're at capacity in all of our middle schools and 6 of 7 of our elementary schools. So you can see we're at 116, 118% this year. Next year, in 21, 22, it'll dip a little because we'll redistrict and we'll move some kids into the new Lincoln Elementary, which we're building to house 750 students. And so this number will go down a little bit because of that, and then it'll begin to climb back up. So we've been at capacity at our elementary schools for a while, and they're overcrowded. Our middle schools, we've balanced out the overcrowding a little by redistricting parts of our city to middle school east, because it had about 450 students, while middle school west and middle school south were pushing 240, 245. And so that balanced things out. But as you can see, we're going to climb in enrollment at the middle school level, and we need a solution for that. At our high school level, the curious thing is we have enough classroom space for the next several years. However, there are other ways that we are over capacity at the high school. And one of the things that we want to show you this morning is just the average class change at Gahanna Lincoln High School. So I'll play a short video for you. So this is what it's like to change classes. It's very crowded. Our students, as you can see, are pretty patient with one another, but it takes them a while to get to their next class, and sometimes they're late for their next class because of the crowding. We're also overcrowded in our cafeterias. We cannot, in an average school day, feed all of our kids, so we have open lunch for juniors and seniors. This overcrowding creates safety concerns. It is inefficient in terms of teaching and learning. When we're starting class late, even 4 or 5 minutes a day, what ends up happening is we lose copious amounts of time each week, each month, each year. So in 21st century learning spaces, what we mean are spaces much like Clark Hall that are flexible, fresh, engaging, inspiring. That's one of the things we'd like to aspire to when we develop our high school solution. One of the things we heard in community conversations and coffees that we did in 2018 and leading up to this phase 2 levy is there's a lot of parents that are concerned about our students at the high school crossing the street, one of the biggest streets in our town, Hamilton Road. And it's dangerous. It's dangerous, especially in the winter when it's dark. So the second question we want to focus on is, what are the recommendations from our Master Facilities Planning Committee? So at the elementary school, the committee recommends that we add classrooms to Blacklick and High Point Elementary, about 10 classrooms in each building. These 2 buildings are mirror images of one another. They're exactly the same. And so the architectural work will be relatively easy. Renovations are always difficult because you have to have school while they're taking place, but we think we can do this with minimal disruption. Also, building new art and music classrooms, extended cafeteria space, and increased office space for Blacklick and High Point. The growth that's taking place in Jefferson Township impacts these two elementaries the most. So the benefits of this recommendation are to eliminate overcrowding, to abolish the need for trailers, to create flexible learning spaces, increase cafeteria space, and to provide, most importantly, for future growth. We are definitely growing. We're at capacity already at Blacklick and High Point, and that trend will continue. And of course, when you do renovations, you can add state-of-the-art security enhancements as well. We'd be adding about 225 students to each of these buildings. The middle school level, our recommendation is to add 20 additional classroom spaces at the middle school level with new art, music classrooms, extended cafeteria space, additional special education spaces, and increased office space. And the benefits are very similar to the elementary level recommendation: to eliminate overcrowding, to create flexible learning spaces, increase cafeteria space, and most importantly, build for future growth. In considering the high school, the committee looked at these four concepts. So one of the things we wanted to revisit, even though we heard from the community that a phase 2 approach, getting to the high school as soon as possible, was important, we looked at the cost and we said, wow, this is going to be very, very costly. So we revisited our 3-phase approach. We looked at the impact of 1 high school versus 2 in our district. We looked, at saving parts of the current high school to make it a new build and renovation project. And we engaged with the community for input on all of these and much more. So these conversations took place in January and February of 2020. And the common themes in these conversations were to build 1 new high school at the current site. To say a word about that. So people did come to these meetings, about 200 plus folks in 4 nights came, and some of them wanted a second high school. They wanted it built in Jefferson Township, and they thought it would be, just better all around. And one of the things that others in the groups, and these were very interactive groups where folks were able to bring their ideas, weigh in with other people, synthesize ideas, and then actually do a table presentation afterwards. And so when folks who wanted a second high school found out that we'd also have to renovate the current high school, we'd have to pay for extra staff, extra transportation costs. The renovation of the current high school would need to take place just to build equity and access to make things fair. We couldn't put half of our high school students in a new school and then the other half in an older school. It just wouldn't be equitable. And so once folks learned that, they saw the challenges with adding a second high school. The other theme that came up quite a bit was to design a state-of-the-art campus style structure designated for 21st century building. And we'll talk a little bit about this later. Another theme is to include excellent performing arts and athletic spaces with an athletic field house. And we heard parents voice a need for extra vocational options for students. They know we have a great relationship with Eastland Fairfield. We have 3 great Eastland Fairfield programs at Clark Hall: architecture, teaching professions, and bioscience. But they think we need more, and more satellite programs from Eastland Fairfield. One of the things they voiced was they want their kids to go to Eastland and be ready for a career. However, kids don't want to miss their experience with their friends that they grew up with in Gahanna and go all the way to another county to learn and kind of miss what is important to them in a high school experience. Also, we could integrate, important theme that came out was integrating security and safety enhancements and eliminating the need for students to cross the street to Clark Hall. So here's the high school recommendations. At a more micro level, we would add 600 additional students. That number, we get to about 2,800 at 2038, 39 in our enrollment study. And so we need to start planning for that now because the students will be here before we know it. Also, we would need to build a 400,000 square foot single site building. So it would be on this campus. It would be on the practice fields behind the visitor stadium where Lincoln Elementary is. There's lots of land back there, taking it back all the way to the softball field and tennis courts. So one of the things we're doing is we're working with architects Moody Nolan. They specialize in building creative, imaginary, inspiring spaces in tight spaces where there's not a lot of room. And we have some conceptual things we'll show you that they've done so far for us. We want to have state-of-the-art performing arts center, also athletic center with a field house, expanded cafeteria space, and like I said before, additional vocational programming, probably about 130 state-of-the-art classrooms, and ample parking. Parking is always an issue at Lincoln High School. And the ability to hold school while building occurs. So one of the things we wanted Moody Nolan Architects to help us with is, could we build with minimal disruption to the school day? This building would take 4 years to complete, about 24 months of planning, 24 months to build. And so we would need to do that while we're in school. And they have confirmed for us that we can do it with minimal disruption. You know, we have a lot of pride in our schools in Gahanna. Lincoln High School is sort of a rallying place for our community. Geographically, it's pretty much in the middle of our town, and building an exciting, inspiring space, we think, with a field house that could be used by K-12 students and others in our community would be an inspiring thing for us. And expanding, you see a picture of a student in a bioscience classroom. We have many engaging courses, and it would be fantastic to allow our kids to have more inspiring spaces. Also, Moody Nolan Architects has put together what they call a book of possibilities. And what this is about is just high-level conceptual drawings, inspiring ideas of what could be. Nothing definitive, nothing set in stone, just some ideas to get our imagination going and get the ball rolling. And so here's one idea they came up with. It's a beautiful space, keeping the current stadium, lots of ample parking. Down the bottom of the screen is Hamilton Road, and up by the football field is Havens Corners. And that's where the building would go. So where the current building is would become parking space. This is just a conceptual drawing of what it might look like. And this is what we mean by campus style structure, where you have separate buildings sort of, and then a hallway connecting them. The building in the far back would be the field house. So another question that's important for us to answer is, what is the cost of this recommendation? So the elementary renovations would be almost $20 million. The middle school renovations would be about 31 million, and the high school, brand new school, would be $198 million. The total would cost about $250 million. The financing vehicles we would need to get to the $250 million would be a bond levy and a PI levy. The PI levy would expire as soon as the building was built. And so you can see here, it would be about $31 on a $100,000 house. That means assessed value, which means 35,000 of the 100,000 would be taxable. Over a year, it would be $374. We know that many of our houses in Gahanna are much more expensive than 100,000. I think the last time I looked, the average house was about 218,000. So it would be 2 times 374 for a $200,000 house. The millage would be 10.69. That means we're adding in to the bond and PI an operating levy. We're growing, we're hiring more staff, more teachers. We're going to need more principals as we grow. And so this is also in place to make up for state cuts. We were cut by 1.6 million in fiscal year 20. So that was in May. And Mike Verlingo, our treasurer, has projected or forecasted other reductions the state could make in the near future. The state has had lots to finance, helping families with unemployment, all kinds of state projects due to the COVID-19 crisis. And so we expect more reductions at the school level. So one of the things I think it's important to answer is, where are we in terms of effective millage in our community compared to other communities around us? So when you look at where we are now at 44.10 mils of effective millage, we're about 15th in our area. And if we pass this, we would move up to around 5th in our area. We know this is expensive. We know the timing is very, very difficult. COVID-19 has created all kinds of complications for us, other school districts, families, businesses. One of the things we deliberated quite a bit on with our Master Facilities Committee and our Board of Education is, if not now, when? The trouble with waiting is we know that construction costs continue to rise. They used to go up about 3% a year. They're now going up about 3% a quarter, or 12% a year. So the longer we wait, and we've waited a long time for a high school solution in Gahanna, the longer we wait, the more expensive it's going to be. But perhaps the most important reason is these students are coming. In 5 years, we'll have 800 more students. And so the capacity problems that we have right now will only be exacerbated. So what I'd like to do is allow our folks on our panel today to talk a little bit about some of the things we deliberated about in our master facilities meetings. And one of the things we'll do is just do that really quick, and then we'll take some questions. So one of the things is that we want to show you here, and Mike, I don't know, Mike Verlingo, if you want to talk about this, but here's the cost or the assessed value. Did you want to say something about this, Mike?
Certainly, yes. If someone wanted to determine what the cost of any potential levy would be, on the auditor website, there is actually a calculator that they put out as a tool, which is an excellent place to go to look at exactly what they project your increase to be, because it will vary slightly depending upon your particular home and whether or not there is the homestead rollback and homeowner credits that different parcels or taxpayers receive, and or whether or not any of your land is valued as residential versus agricultural. But in general, if you take 100,000, which is the assessed value, the auditor assessed value of your home, which they call the market value, multiply that by 35%, that would equal the taxable value. Divide that by 1,000 and multiply by the new millage. That will give you a close approximation to what you would pay for any levy that's being proposed. So in this case, for the 10.69 mils, it's 374 per year per 100,000 of assessed value.
Thank you, Mike. So one of the other things that we want to show you is how we looked at the possible renovation. So say saving our gymnasium, saving our auditorium, which our performing arts teachers, students and parents like a lot. The stage is an envy of many schools. It has wide wings. It's a very deep stage. The sky space is also very good. So we really did a lot of deliberation and consideration around a renovation project to save taxpayers money, but also save parts of the building that are near and dear to us and that work well. So I don't know if anybody on the committee wanted to say anything about this, Catherine or Jessica.
I can speak to this. You know, I think the thing here that you see is in the blue is the renovated space, and in the red there is the, you know, spaces that would have been demoed and made anew. The part that we struggled with here on the day in which we discussed this specific graphic was, you know, all of the recommendations from our community conversations in January and February were not coming to life in this modeling here. And so Clark Hall was still would still be a part of the puzzle. We also came to the realization that this is a short-term solution versus a new high school being a long-term solution, because we would be placing a Band-Aid on some of our inefficiencies, whether that be the overcrowding in the hallways that you saw, the overcrowding in the cafeteria that you saw in that image. These were just some of the temporary short-term solutions when we started to consider renovating and demoing parts of the high school and still keeping Clark Hall, which still gave us the major concern that came out of our community conversations was the safety and the back and forth between Clark Hall and main campus. So, you know, it was definitely a long meeting, a tough meeting, but I know myself as well, when I, you know, as the building principal started to look at the square footage that we would demo versus renovate, it was very eye-opening of how much we were actually keeping, but still these were some of the more inefficient spots in our building on a daily basis.
Yes, thank you. This was a very interesting conversation we had, and you summarized it well, Jessica. Thank you. Catherine, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that one of the North Stars that we had been using to guide the conversation all along is fiscal responsibility. And as we had the conversation about renovation and we started to apply the numbers, it became more and more clear that this was going to be an expensive fix. And it also didn't address some of the inefficiencies, especially in terms of maintenance and retroactively retrofitting. So, you know, there were other things that also didn't get addressed by this solution, things like safety that Jessica mentioned. And one of the considerations was lost instructional time, because the halls are so crowded, the kids are getting to their classes late. So this particular solution did not solve some of the safety issues and the lost instructional time that we were concerned about. And so ultimately, we decided this was not the way to go.
Okay, thank you, Catherine. This is just one slide from our enrollment study. And as you can see, in 2038-39, we reached 9,200 students. This year we're at 7,700, a little over almost 8,000, so 7,777. And so that's a big jump. But if you look at 26, 27, 27, 28, we gain close to 1,000 students in those years. And so, you know, one of the questions that is really important is, you know, why are we growing and why do we need to do this now given COVID-19? And so we're growing because there's a lot of building happening in Jefferson Township. And what we looked at is a forecast of how many homes do we think will be built there per year. And we started out, well, it could be 200, it could be 150, it could be 100, it could be 125. We settled on 125 because we know there's a labor shortage in construction. We know that there is a desire to build in Jefferson Township and build very quickly, but we think the reasonable estimate or forecast is 125 homes. So these projections, these numbers are based on a forecast of 125 units per year. It could be more, it could be less, but we think this is a pretty educated guess. And we think that this plan for phase 2 will take care of our facility needs for the next 5 or so decades. As you see, in 2043, 45, we're about 9,000 students. So we begin to go down according to our forecast. Our forecast for enrollment was done by a group called Cooperative Strategies. They have an office in Hilliard and they have offices all over the United States, and they do these predictive models all the time. So they've worked in Hilliard and Olentangy and big county districts in Georgia, Florida, and they've done a lot of work in California. A lot of the places they work is where the population growth is accelerating. Also, this slide just shows us where we are in terms of current enrollment at the elementary level and where we will peak in 2038, 39. So we're going to have 4,271 students at the K-5 level. We're going to go from 1,796 last year to 2,136 at the middle school level, and from 2,260 at the high school level to 2,847, which is a growth of total of 9,254 students. A total growth over that 10-year period is 1,600 students. So that is significant growth for us. A lot of folks in our community engagement meetings around a high school solution wondered where we were in the state. I think a lot of people think we're #1 in the state in terms of the size of our high school, and we're actually 9th. But as you can see, 15 and 18, two Olentangy schools are over 2,000. So we're very close to these schools. Dublin is very close to us at Dublin Kaufman. And even Upper Arlington is close at 1871. So what we'll do is we'll go back and, take some questions now. And so Jill Elliott is going to be our moderator for these questions. You can just enter them into the YouTube chat if you haven't already, and we're ready to get started.
Okay, so right now we just have one question out there. And the question is, what about Goshen Lane where they already have trailers for additional space?
Yeah, that's a good question. And not only do we have trailers, we like to call them modulars. They are also at High Point and Blacklick. And Goshen Lane is, I think, at 600 students plus right now. We had to add an assistant principal there just to handle the larger volume of students. And, we don't want to educate students or put teachers in trailers. It kind of disconnects them from the building, and it's just not an optimal experience. And so we're likely in the redistricting that's going to happen in the fall here to balance some of the growth at Goshen Lane and Jefferson and other schools out. At the end of the day, the growth is going to continue. And, school districts never want to use trailers or modulars, but we have to resort to that when growth overwhelms us and we don't have space in the main building.
There are no other questions at this time.
Okay. Well, thanks everyone for joining us today. We can wait a minute if anybody has any questions that they're maybe thinking about right now. Would anybody on our panel today like to say anything?
Steve, while we're waiting for other questions, can I ask you to go back to the slide that showed the millage for all the various communities?
Yes. I might have passed it. Sorry.
I think you might have passed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you were going the wrong way.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I think it's important to understand is that we want to have a sense of pride in our facilities. And one of my takeaways from this slide is that all of our peer institutions that we are surrounded by have a higher total effective mills than we do. So if we look at Whitehall and Bexley and New Albany and Westerville, we notice that those numbers are higher. And so when we are surrounded by peer institutions that have newer schools, that becomes an issue of not only pride in our community, but also, people being surrounded in other communities with nicer facilities when they come to our facilities, at sports games or whatever matches, they do observe. And so we want to place ourselves in a competitive place, with our peers and have pride in the facilities that we have at Gahanna. So I just wanted to point out, where we are as far as how much money we're spending on schools compared to the communities that surround us.
Thank you, Catherine. I'd like to add to that by saying when I first came to Gahanna in August of 2016, we did a trend analysis where we looked at other school districts and what they were spending on transportation, what they were spending on administration, what they were spending in the classroom compared to what we were spending. And one of the things we found is we did a really good job at funding classroom instruction and all the things that support that. One of the things where we lag behind other districts in our area and other districts in the state was our operations and the amount of dollars we put into our facilities. And so when they did a state study from the Facilities Commission, what they found was anything above 0.6 renovation, so a 2/3 renovation. So they do these studies and they go into schools and they say, if 2/3 of the building needs to be renovated, you should just build new. And most of our schools were at that 2/3 level. But obviously in Gahanna, we don't have the room to just build new schools. So we have to renovate. And Scott Lofton and his team have used the 2014 PI levy to do lots of enhancements. Some you can see, like the Middle School West track or the Middle School West auditorium that was renovated. You can see the new flooring that went in, but that was part of our recent phase 1 project. So we have multiple ways that we're gradually bringing our buildings up to being warm, safe, dry, shiny, inspiring spaces. So new lighting, new LED lighting, new flooring, new HVAC systems at Chapel Field, Middle School West, Royal Manor, Goshen Lane. Those are very important projects because what it means is we're taking care of our buildings now and they will serve us well for the next several decades. And so that investment is really, really important. We lag behind and the 2014 PI is helping us catch up with other districts in that regard. Jill, are there any other questions?
Yeah, there's one more that's come through. Does keeping the current stadium reduce the cost substantially?
It does reduce the cost. I think it's between $3 to $5 million reducing it. So there are other conceptual drawings that Moody Nolan has done that place it in another spot. And so there are options to keep it, options to move where it is. I think what's important to note about what Moody Nolan is doing for us in the book of possibilities, and they've been just a fantastic firm to work with, is they're just giving us some inspiring ideas, what could be, what the possibilities are. And So what we want to do, if we pass this bond issue and PI levy on November 3rd, is we want to deliberate with the community. We want to sit down with you. We want to show you what the possibilities are, and we want to have you weigh in on those possibilities.
No further questions at this time.
Okay, well, we want to thank everyone on the YouTube, on our YouTube channel and our YouTube chat for joining us today. This will be recorded as the other meetings we've had are, and it'll be on our website. So thanks so much. We hope you have a great weekend. Thanks everybody on our panel too.
Thanks, Steve.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.